Good evening. Thank you for having me on this show. It's a pleasure to be back. My name is Cedric Van Meerbeeck. I'm the climatologist with the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology, and it is my distinct pleasure to be able to tell you a little bit about why we've been feeling so hot in the recent weeks and months. And in fact, tell you a little bit more about how this is not just in Grenada or in Barbados, where the CIMH or Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology is located, but actually across the Caribbean, across the North Atlantic Ocean bordering lands, and actually across the world. So let's go over a few things that we need to look at that can highlight why it is that we've been feeling hot this year. So if you look at the image in front of you, what you will see is that in the Caribbean, we can characterize our seasons into four distinct types of seasons. One, which is the most well-known, is called the hurricane season. Now, as you know, officially it runs from June the 1st up until November. In many of the Caribbean countries, we have the wet season. We also know that the rest of the year is the dry season. But there's another type of season that we haven't been familiarized with very much up until recently, if at all, and that is what we now call the Caribbean heat season. Now, this heat season can be characterized as the time of the year when we have more heat waves or frequent heat waves in some years, and also higher temperatures on average. Around September, which is when you can see the darkest colors occur in terms of the frequency of excessive heat. August and September is also when our humidity levels go up quite a lot. And so September tends to be the hottest month, at least the way we feel in terms of how humid and hot the conditions are. If we focus a little bit closer to home, now this is a slide that looks at Barbados specifically, and temperatures as they have been evolving during the daytime at the weather station that CIMH maintains. So that is right in our backyard. It was a little bit warmer throughout the year on average in the last year than it is historically, but if you compare that to this year so far, and we have temperatures plotted here up until August, what we've seen is that there have been, for instance, 35 days with temperatures above 32 degrees, which is not very common. Actually, last year, the two warmest days in Barbados only reached 32 degrees, and the rest of the time was actually cooler. If you look at this red line, you can see how much hotter this year has been. And maybe more important, we've been feeling hot not just because temperature is hot, as I said, but also the humidity has been high. And so even though the temperatures typically this month during the daytime have been hovering around the maximum of 32, 33 degrees, the feels like temperature, or what we really feel is the heat, is closer to 35 to 40 degrees, all the way from morning to almost sundown. This hasn't been happening just in Barbados, but this has been happening throughout the Eastern Caribbean, throughout the OECS countries, and actually throughout the Caribbean. So it's not surprising that you would feel like this year is incredibly hot. It is the case. And perhaps the most important factor this year, besides the fact that there's long-term climate change, is that also locally in the North Atlantic Ocean, as you can see on this slide, on the left, you see the temperatures at the surface of the ocean last year in September, and on the right, you see this year in September. And the darker colors show really where it's warmer this year than it was last year. So you can see around the Caribbean and east of the Caribbean, the temperature has been higher. So to conclude, this year, the temperatures have never been as warm on a day-to-day basis compared to any of the same date of the year in any past year, all the way from the beginning of July. The North Atlantic has been record warm this year. So more heat available means warmer temperature and more humidity. So therefore, more heat waves. There's two smaller reasons, and one is related to the Tonga volcanic eruptions very far away in the Pacific island nation of Tonga that happened last year. On top of that, we've also got the situation where the Pacific Ocean is very hot at this time. This is a situation which we call an El Nino event. In the Caribbean, as a consequence, is that we get fewer showers. And with fewer showers come fewer moments where we can get cooling from the very high daytime temperatures, again contributing to the heat. So I hope this was useful and in a way clarifies maybe some of the questions you might have had, like, was it really warm? Why do we feel so warm this year? Is it normal that it's hot this year or around this time of year? And are we really breaking records? The answer, as you know, is yes. Have a wonderful evening and stay cool.